morning. Thank you, Kyle and Corey, for your musical prelude. There'll be a postlude too, I think. Thank you all for coming. We Young had an extended family of 7 children, so there are 3 kids from this coast and 4 kids from the west and east coast that came, as well as some of the older generation. And Ben and Keck Wynn, which is, they came from the Bay Area, San Jose, are coming. So thank you so much for all coming to celebrate We Young's passing. His relatives were his brother, Lee Young and Shu Young. They're from New York City. And April and myself. April's the eldest, we're going down in age now. And our 2 children, Alyssa and Senna. Janice and Ralph Tedesco. Janice is here today with Mark and Tedesco and Alana. Alana's here today. Helen and Pudge, or Joseph Ricciolo from Belmont. And their children, Alex and Nikki. And then Dennis Young, the tallest one of us all here today. And his children, Danielle Young and her child, Derek Young. And Gary and May Young, who have worked so hard to help Mr. Young in these last years of his life. We're so grateful. In every family, there's always one, and Gary has been one of May's love and support. Kyle and Corey, their children, who are about to launch to college shortly. And Barry and Tam, up from San Jose area, again, Fremont, I guess, and their child, Tyler. And finally, the youngest, Carol, and her husband, John, and their 3 children, Gavin, Garrett, and Madison, round up the crowd. So if there's any doubt that the Young family will not end, it's going to go on forever and forever. So today, we gather here to celebrate, not so much to mourn, but celebrate a wonderful, gentle, thoughtful, diligent man who came to this country as a youth and made a life for himself and raised 7 great kids, all of whom have done well for themselves and like each other and relate. And we as a family are very lucky to have that gift from Mr. Young. And he has this inner light that's very glowing, and we'll talk about that later. But I'd like to say today, we'll just start with mostly remembrances today. So we're going to start with Gary, who will give the sermon, okay? And he is actually an ordained minister.
Yes, I'm ordained. I'm ordained by the online church, the Universal Life Church. I do weddings, I do whatever you need me for. I don't mind doing all this stuff either. It's true. My dad, instead of wanting to do what you would expect, he actually asked me, if you don't mind, can you do my funeral? And I thought about it and I go, why is he putting this on me? And then I thought about it and I go, it's sort of not a burden. I thought about it after a while. It's actually like a privilege. I go, wow, I'm glad that my dad actually asked me to do this. And I sort of take it as a privilege to getting to know him really well the past 51 years, but actually really close with him for the past 4 years. I didn't have to talk with him. It was every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday I'd see him. So I got to see a lot of him, and I got to learn a lot from him. I learned to calm down and don't take things so seriously. And so, yeah, and I learned an important, great thing about having 3 kids, and that's why one was you can start. So. In 1962, Pete Seeger put the words of the Book of Ecclesiastes to music in the song Turn, Turn, Turn was born. The song, like that, tells us of life's transitions, challenges, and ending with hope and love's legacy. Dad loved music. He loved to sing on his own throughout his childhood, the Navy, and with all 7 of his kids and his grandchildren can sing. I can hear him singing his favorites like Three Blind Mice and Anchors Away, Love and Marriage, and Amazing Grace. He really did love Amazing Grace. He loved listening to them while driving and just sitting around doing nothing. Lately, I've had the pleasure of seeing his toothless smile with his granddaughter, Madison. Granddaughter would sing her rendition of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Dad loved his 2 wives. He really felt fortunate to have been married twice to two good wives. He recalled the challenges of living in the Windy City, Chicago, in the middle of winter, and how Wei Chun Chen would work hard to keep his 3 daughters clothed and warm. And he reminded me more than once. She made her own dresses for them. It was great. Of course, we knew who would be in charge of getting the food on the table. Always made that. Our family. He related to me the mental toughness it took to move his family without a car from Chicago to Somerville, Massachusetts. He told me how tough it was after Wade passed away at 29. It had taken over 50 years, and I still don't know how he did it. One thing that brought a tear to Dad's eye was the first time he remembered Dennis running over to his newly arrived second wife, King Ying Wong, and calling her Mommy. That's one thing that stood out over time and time again. He had tried his best. He knew things would get better. Dad was not the crying type. The only other time I saw him cry was at my college graduation. My problem was that I was born hydrocephalic and he didn't know how I was going to turn out. So he was glad that I actually was able to do something. In the long run, it turned out so good because he was going to be worried that he was going to take care of me for the rest of my life. Instead, in his old age, he flipped, and it was great. He knew, he visited King Young every day when she was in a nursing home, rain or shine, so that he could pinch her nose and show her that he would be there to feed her. He showed me the true meaning of till death do us part. Dad loved life. He used to play football, soccer, basketball, yes, all 5'4" of them, against Barry and me. But then, until high school. At high school, it was Barry and I against him, and then it became too unfair. I've grown taller than him by high school. He seemed to have shrunk as he got older, but he loved sports. He was an avid New England Patriots fan, and that's why he'd be buried with his Patriots gnome, courtesy of Janice. Thanks. There will also be a bear from Tyler who spent his own money to help him bring chair to Yaya's face. In his case, it's Yaya. Madison made him a paper lobster. They have it. I'm not sure where they put it, but it's here somewhere. And his favorite food. We all left him some money and some DVDs for him to enjoy and put to use in heaven. August 7, 2005, not that long ago. It was the best of times. It was Dad's 80th birthday. And all 7 of his kids and his significant others were there. We had a mini banquet for him, and of course, we all know they love lobster, Chinese food, and good company. We took so many pictures of Dad in his Area 51 sweatshirt and his 3-tooth smile. Yeah, there's pictures of him on the side there in his Area 51 sweatshirt. That sweatshirt doesn't exist anymore. And then on 7/11/2009, it was truly the best of times. And son would know about this. Dad could get around on his own, and weddings were always fun for him. Mrs. Kang and Dad were the eldest statesperson at Senna's wedding, and he thrived in social setting. He really loved it with his friends and family and Mrs. Kang. And he was so glad to end the trip with a gathering of his old friends for the last time. Dad was so loved and respected at the same time. Father's Day 2013, just months ago. Oh, yeah. Dad was so loved. Over 3 weeks just prior to Dad's passing, we were able to get him out to his favorite Chinese restaurants, markets, family gatherings. Dad couldn't attend, but just being part of Kyle and Coy's graduation, it was touching. We have a picture of Kyle and Coy right after the graduation, where they went over and I posted it on Facebook. He had been part of so many of their milestones. I feel blessed. Even though he would be in and out of the ER several times, his mind was still sharp and his love of his family was very evident at the end. We knew Dad's life was coming to a close, but he met death with dignity and constantly reminded me that he had a good life. Like the song Turn, 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 Dad's death is just another part of life. It is now our turn to mourn him today and then get along with our busy lives with Dad's memory in our hearts. In closing, I would like to quote Benjamin Franklin in saying, "He that raises a large family does, indeed, while he lives to observe them, stand a broader mark for sorrow, but then he stands a broader mark for pleasure too." Dad's positive outlook on life, love, and his family will live on. Amen.
Two coasts, two sets of families that get along with each other and respect each other, and a lot of history. And perhaps the greatest tribute is to maybe go over some of how he got here, what he did, and who he raised. And it's so long that the East Coast family took the first half, that's April, and Gary did the second half. And most of it's here in condensed form. But my daughters, Alyssa and Senna, will read April's part, and then after that, Gary will read the second part. Okay? 87 years.
Good morning. I'm Senna, and this is my sister Alyssa. And like my dad said, we are the daughters of April, the oldest, and my dad. We're happy to share our grandfather's life story from the early part, from our mom's point of view. Li Kuan-Yong was born in New Biang village in Toisan, China, on August 7, 1925. Although not verified, Dad believed he was one of a set of twin boys who was adopted by his parents, Sing Yong and Nguyen Tan Chin. Since his father Sing worked in the United States and supported his family by sending money back to China, Dad lived a fairly comfortable life, which in his day meant that he lived in a two-story brick building with no indoor plumbing or electricity. Most days he played with his cousins and friends. He was also responsible for helping his blind paternal grandmother and escorting her around the village. Other times he helped his mother with gardening and household chores. In 1936, Dad's father returned to China for a family reunion, and then left with Dad for the United States at the age of 10 and a half. After traveling for 21 days via Hong Kong, Shanghai, Cody, and Hawaii, they finally landed in Seattle, Washington. Sing was a United States citizen and could enter the country easily. Dad, however, was detained for about 10 days. Luckily, his father had prepared him for the detention, and after correctly answering questions, he was finally released. They took a train to Chicago, Illinois, where they lived and worked at the Wing Sing Laundry. Dad's old life in China was happy compared to his new life in Chicago. His father had a bad temper, and laundry work was laborious and hot. Dad's main chore was cooking all the meals. He had to learn English while also dealing with racism. He remembered how frugal his father was in not buying him new shoes, even when his toes were sticking out of his torn ones, which led to his second toe permanently hanging over his big toe later on in life. I remember this. Even though he completed 6th grade in China, he had to enter school in 1st grade because he didn't know English. He was able to skip some grades and was 17 years old when he finished 8th grade. After attending Hyde Park School for half a year, he attended Chicago Air College. On July 18, 1944, Dad was drafted into the United States Army. After training at various locations, he was stationed in Quonset Point, Rhode Island. He loved serving in the Navy. Although he was assigned to laundry service, it turned out that civilians did the actual laundry work, and he just had to supervise them. There were lots of perks to being in the Navy. One time, Dad found his way to Chesapeake Bay by hitchhiking in his Navy uniform. And another time, he got to drive a truck around the base, even though he didn't have a driver's license. In 1946, after the service, Dad returned to Chicago. His father told him to go to China to find a wife. The matchmaker had a list of eligible women for Dad to meet, and the first one he met was Wei Chun-chin. He knew he wanted to marry her and was not interested in meeting any other woman. They married and traveled by ship to San Francisco and then by train to Chicago. Settling down in the laundry business, Dad and Mom had 3 daughters. April was born in April 1948. Janice was born in July 1949, and Helen in December of 1950. The laundry business in Chicago was not the future that Dad and Mom envisioned for their family. So when Singh passed away in 1951, the couple took the opportunity to find a new future. Crowding into one sleeping compartment on a train, the family of 5 moved to Boston, Massachusetts, where they bought a laundry in West Somerville. The laundry was in the front and the living area in the back. There was no bathtub, and the 3 girls shared one full-size bed. Mom ran the laundry while Dad commuted to Boston's Chinatown to work at Holy Restaurant. Although growing up in the laundry was not ideal, Dad and Mom were hardworking and loving parents. Mom cooked treats and sewed beautiful clothes for the girls, and Dad always bought treats like dried fruits, candy, and even canned baby abalone on sticks. One Christmas, the girls woke up to lots of toys for Santa. However, the girls could not understand how Santa was able to deliver gifts through no fireplace in the laundry. The girls had a wonderful childhood, though. They were great playmates and created their own games, such as laying chairs on their backs and pretending they were riding a train. In December of 1955, Dennis was born. Being the first boy, Dad and Mom were overjoyed. In 1956, due to their diligence, Dad and Mom were able to buy a share in Cafe Village, a restaurant in Mattapan, and a house nearby. Life became much better in Mattapan. Dad could come home in the afternoons to play with his children, and sometimes drive them to and from school. His children and the neighborhood kids also really enjoyed the cases of ice cream treats that he would buy from the ice cream delivery man at the restaurant. In the spring of 1958, Mom developed pancreatic cancer. Ever caring and nurturing, Dad would always make sure there was enough food in the house and cooked and brought food to Mom when she was in the hospital. On October 3rd, 1958, Mom passed away. After Mom's death, Dad decided he could not raise a family by himself, so he found people to take care of his children while he went to Hong Kong to find a new wife. Not too many people were willing to marry a widower with 4 children, but King Ying Wong was willing to marry Dad on March 2nd, 1959. Although awkward at first, the family was able to work together and grow. Gary was born in April of 1962, Barry in February of 1964, and Carol in February of 1970. Around 1971, Dad and King decided to leave Mattapan and buy a restaurant and a house in Walpole. By that time, the 3 older girls had mostly moved out on their own, so Dad and King moved to Walpole with Dennis, Gary, Barry, and Carol. Dad would get the whole family together for holidays for steak and lobster, surf and turf, and he always made sure that his family was well fed. His saying was that money spent on food is never a waste. Owning and operating a restaurant was hard work, and Dad was getting older and developing arthritis. Plus, the cold New England winters were not helping. So in 1977, like the Beverly Hillbillies, Dad, King, Carrie, Barry, and Carol moved to California. So now we're going to hand off the West Coast chapter to Uncle Gary, so he can finish telling you the story.
In 1977, Dad and King moved with their 3 youngest children, Gary, Barry, and Carol. And we jumped in Dad's Ford van, which is a picture in the front, with a big sunflower in the back. And we headed west to California. The cross-country drive was a rush to beat the moving truck to a new home in Stockton, and Dad drove 300 miles a day on his own. The best part of the trip was singing songs with Dad. We always loved singing Navy songs, Anchors Away, Meatballs in the Navy. After days of driving and stopping in hotels, we made it to a new home, and hot, so hot. And it now broke Stockton. Luckily, after a few months, Dad found a job as a waiter at Ganchai restaurant. We participated in the Chinese Youth Club of Stockton. It was an organization that Dad really enjoyed being part of. The organization arranged an annual lion dance for the Chinese businesses in downtown Stockton, and also arranged dinner banquets for members and their families to attend. The Chinese community of Stockton was a big part of Dad's life, and Dad did really great in that environment. And because he's a nice guy, and because his English and Chinese was really good. And he was a very popular person in Stockton because he's willing to run errands for people. He had a van, and he just brightened a lot of people's days. Dad and Mom often went to Hometown Buffet to get some fried chicken for Mom. And at that time, Dad could not be separated from his married with children and his idol, Al Bundy. He seemed to closely relate to Al's many exploits and agreed to many of Al's actions and humorous antics. As time passed, all three of his kids, including me, graduated and went away from college and our own lives. Fortunately, in 1993, I got married. And when we had twin boys in 1995, it was an easy decision for Mom and Dad to move down to Alhambra and to lend us a hand. We asked them what his most favorite memory was at that time, and of course it had to do with food. It was going with Mom to go eat at Chinese barbecue restaurants. And I go, that's the way you think. It's great. As the years passed in the LA area, Dad and Mom were able to participate in many memorable events. They were happy to be at weddings, births, celebrations, just with families and friends. They moved from apartment to apartment, and finally were lucky enough to get into senior housing, the Plaza on Main. They enjoyed the company of their residents and quick access to the markets, Chinese restaurants, and their friends. Eventually, Mom's health deteriorated. He'd still visit Mom every day, rain or shine, at Alderwood Manor, and take her to get food that was questionable, but get her pork buns, bananas, chicken, duck, fried fish, anything she'd ask for. He would entertain himself by watching television shows and movies like Dirty Harry and Death Wish. Yes, that sounds good. The staff at Alderwood Manor loved to see Dad and appreciate how dedicated he was and how he was able to keep Mom's spirits up. Dad loved children and his family. In his final years at Alderwood, as a resident himself, his greatest joys were being with family, friends, particularly his 14 grandchildren, and it was great that he had a chance to meet all of them. He was so happy to have his family together for his big 80th birthday. I was able to get him back to his last trip back east and one trip to Stockton. While he was in Stockton, I was able to get him to one of their get-togethers where he reminisced with old friends who would be for the last time. They knew it, but they were accepting of it. He was really happy to be part of Senna's wedding. While in Boston, he had gotten together with so many of his family and friends in the East Coast. In the end, he was very happy to be at Alderwood, an Ivy Creek resident. He would really love being around and joking around with the staff and residents as he walked down the halls. Here. Time after time, he would come back from the hospital like a conquering hero to the delight of staff and residents. He'd go on a gurney down the road, and the people would be smiling, and some people would give him a high five, and she was great. It's great being wanted, being loved. Everyone loved Dad. The shuttle drivers, the staff, the residents, and his mahjong partners. His roommates, his doctors, his nurses, his barber, and his good friend Nate. And too many others to mention. He will always be remembered as a kind and loving dad, husband, brother, mentor. He was my mentor. And friend who had a great sense of humor and a very positive outlook on life. His positive outlook and love for each other and each one of us will live together forever in our hearts. Thank you.
Moment where I change the SD card, okay?